Halloween, everyone! Meta527 is back. This time we will be discussing my top 15 most disturbing moments in Mario games. Mario is a very icon in all of gaming, and it's easy to see why kids love this franchise. However, being a series spanning over 3 decades, it's no surprise that a few questionable things has managed to unnerve, scare, or even gross out their audience. Just remember, we are all disturbed by different things, so there will likely be some entries on the list that you disagree with. I'd like to warn you right now, this list will contain massive spoilers throughout the franchise, especially for the RPGs. So, now begins my countdown of what I believe are the top 15 most disturbing moments in Mario games. Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of the first ever Mario games we ever got. And for a game that originated in 8-bit, you'd think there are no creepy moments in it at all, right? Well, you couldn't be any more wrong. As you could probably tell by the fact that I'm including a moment from the game on here. So, once you make it to World 8 and get past a few levels, you find yourself in an area with 3 peculiar looking tiles. You try to cross them, and all of a sudden... Nintendo? What just happened? Yep, as if being in a desolate wasteland wasn't bad enough, they had to bring creepy hands in here. There are 3 of these tiles that you have to cross, and each time you cross one, there's a good chance the hand will grab you and drag you down into this trap, and you can't escape from the grip of this monstrous thing. So that means there are 3 chances of this happening. The levels they drag you into aren't that bad on their own, but the way this happens, well, I guess that Nintendo knew how unpleasant wall masters were, so they decided to bring something like that into Mario. No, please don't drag me down, please don't drag me down, please don't drag me down! Darn it! I've been thinking of if I should have second thoughts of Bowser's Inside Story. Some of my complaints were actually somewhat invalid since I realized Bowser is supposed to be that strong, so that he has a better match against the enemies he gets to fight, and the atmosphere can be fun and enchanting. Though it was unnecessary of them to make some of the attacks you have to follow spinning things that make you dizzy. But, on with the entry. In the opening of the game, the citizens of Toad Town are just minding their own business, living their everyday lives, when suddenly, they inflate to 10 times their own mass and grow to crippling sizes, and become mostly immobile. The worst part is that no one knows what's causing this disease, let alone how to cure it. Well, that's what happens when you take a mysterious mushroom from a creepy guy. Luckily, our heroes do find the antidote, known as the miracle cure, and everyone returns to their normal size. Except for one blorb-sized toad. But that's okay, this is what he normally looks like. Kinda like those disabled people in real life that I feel really sorry for. Super Mario RPG was the beginning of a whole new era in Mario history, giving Mario its first step into the RPG genre, leading to several entries that will show up later on the list. This moment happens once you head to Marymore and rescue Peach from an unholy matrimony with Booster, aka Bootleg Wario. 2 chefs come in, angry with our heroes that they no longer have use for their wedding cake. So, you fight them, and you see they're both invincible. But you notice something else. You can attack the cake. It makes you question, is the cake a monster? Or can you use it to cover up the chefs with it? If only the latter option was that simple. Instead, it turns out that the cake has a mind of its own. Yikes! And the icing on the cake, no pun intended, is the fact that no one, not even the chefs, know what happened. Yeah, they probably should have explained that later in the game. Regardless, this is actually kind of unsettling. It's not so much the living cake factor that makes this moment creepy. There have been plenty of living objects throughout the Mario series, and scarier ones at that. Instead, the shock value of actually discovering that the cake was alive was what caught me off guard. Honestly, even though Luigi's Mansion is a good game, I don't think it's scary in the slightest. The ghosts make ridiculous sounds when they appear, and they look way too derpy to actually be considered ghosts. There's nothing scary about this game at all. Okay, I take that back. There are a few creepy things in the game, The most spine-tingling parts come from some of the descriptions of the portrait ghosts. Like Mr. Lugs, for example, literally eating himself to death. But the worst one is Sue P. Think about this. She was only 7 years old when she died. That's already a disgusting thought by itself. It's said that she died while she was asleep. That's an uncomfortable fate for anyone. And then, she was trapped inside a painting for what I assume was just because she happened to be a ghost, despite the fact that she was probably just minding her own business. There aren't many fates I can imagine worse than that, except for having your soul burned up, or being erased from existence, or... Well, who asked you? Super Mario World was the first official Mario game I've ever played. As long as you don't count Advance for pretty much being a reskin of Doki Doki Panic. Anyway, you're probably thinking, the ghost houses, right? No. Instead we'll be looking at something that appears in some of the castle levels. Let me give you my reaction to how I reacted when I first saw this. Okay, we're at the end of this room in the first castle, now let's go through the door. Wait a minute. Is this screen moving by itself? Oh my gosh! What was that thing that just tried to crush me? As if we didn't already have thwomps in the game, these things will try to crush you in these scrolling rooms. And the best part, they take up over half the screen. This was especially terrifying since this was the first experience I ever had in an auto-scrolling level, which is actually pretty ironic considering how their first appearance in Super Mario Bros. 3 wasn't even meant to scare you. And having that be in a castle, combined with these horrible things trying to kill you, you can imagine how terrified of these portions I was when I was a kid. In spite of what I said earlier about how being too derpy can make something not as scary as it's supposed to be, in some situations, what's on the inside can completely change one's perception on the outside. Tubba Blubba is a perfect example of this. Even though he's one of the goofiest looking bosses in the game, once you find out about him, you'll cry out for mercy. Throughout his life, he's been constantly haunted by booze. Being tormented like that is a fate that no one deserves. So how does he handle this? He is given both invincibility and the power to eat booze. Yep, he eats booze alive. Or dead since they're ghosts, so how do I word this? But you get what I'm trying to say, do you? I don't know what's worse, the fact that Tubba Blubba is subjected to endless torment, or the fact that he can devour booze in one bite. But thankfully, in the end, all the booze he ate are saved as soon as you beat him. After finding out the way to take away his invincibility is to reunite him with his heart. Yeah, they could have explained that much better. But I guess when I think about it, it kind of makes sense. Even though I actually liked Sticker Star, I gotta say that Color Splash has actually improved on it in the story department. I don't know if I like it more than Sticker Star or not, considering it's only a few weeks old and it's too early to judge. But one thing's for certain, it has some moments that can actually be somewhat creepy at times. I was thinking of putting the Shy Guys joining people's color on the list, but it gets less and less frightening as the game goes on and they can easily be revived. There is one moment in which... What is that?! Seeing the Shy Guy get deformed like this is not a very pleasant image. The fact that it bends back like that in a way that cannot look comfortable, the way it moves makes me feel like I'm gonna be sick. If I were in real life and I saw that squirming towards me, I would literally scream. And let's not forget the music that plays in your first encounter with one, which sounds like something you'd hear in a horror movie. This would be especially terrible if you didn't see it coming. Super Mario 64 is just as famous as Super Mario World, and is one of the most iconic... No, I'm not talking about the piano. I'm talking about something that I found to be much worse. Okay, let's go through this star door. Endless stairs? What? I don't understand. Wait, the door's still open for me? Okay, well, on to the final... what's going on? Oh my gosh, these really are the endless stairs. They do a great job messing with your mind, with the red and black coloring and the disturbing music. Am I the only one who gets the feeling of you will never see your princess again from this? Well, actually I knew that Mario would be reunited with her in the end, but the feeling this gives is just indescribable. The reason this affects me more than the piano is because I've seen the piano so many times that it doesn't work on me as much as it first did. Well, and because I kind of predicted that the piano would come to life like that. But this, I didn't expect this at all. It's just too bad that the DS version had to completely give away the fact that it was an infinite loop and somewhat ruined the intensity. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon did a much better job at scaring me than Luigi's Mansion ever could. Because, even though the ghosts still look derpy, at least they're not as derpy as the ones in the original. Plus, there are moments like the sudden elevator drop before the first boss, and being attacked by a bear rug in which you'd assume was still dead. But worst of all, is in the second to last required mission of the game. Before you start, you get a message from the Professor Egad saying that he's getting paranormal readings from inside the mansion. So you go inside the treacherous mansion and you make your way up to the terrace. You find a portal, but then a bunch of powerful ghosts emerge from it. Well, now you've got more to deal with. But just wait. You find out that with so many of the more powerful ghosts in the mansion at once, the universe will collapse upon itself if you don't catch all of them in time. It's not as cliched as it sounds. Well, it kind of is. But with this mission becoming a race against time to capture all the ghosts as fast as you can, with thunder flashing purple as a constant reminder of what's happening, and the music getting faster adds even more tension, your heart will be pounding. To be fair, this moment's more suspenseful than disturbing, but what's at stake here is the reason why it's on the list. But it's not any higher because they don't actually show what happens if you run out of time. Instead, it just goes to the game over screen. But I guess they wanted to make it appeal to kids, just like the Majora's Mask Moon Crash scene. Yoshi's Island, my most nostalgic game of all time. What's the fear? Well, a couple things. Like the final boss, for example, constantly getting closer and closer to you and threatening to destroy your platforms, sending you into the abyss. This was very close to making the countdown, and probably would have been here, but I find another boss even more disturbing. Prince Froggy. Here's the boss that you'll most definitely need to take a shower after dealing with. Now at first glance it doesn't seem so bad, then instead of growing to giant size, Kamek shrinks you down and you get eaten alive. This was my first ever experience in a section of a game taking place in the creature's stomach, and your only method of defeating him is to grab giant shy guys to make large eggs and then shooting Prince Froggy's uvula. That's actually a pretty original weak point. Just the thought of having to smack someone's uvula around is unnerving on its own. And how does it end? Does he barf you up? Nope. Instead he poops you out. Yeah. Rated E for everyone. This entry covers something that applies to the entire Mario series, not just one game. And after this, you'll probably never be able to look at Mario the same way ever again. So either have your childhood ruined, or skip over the entry. One thing that the Mario series have inadvertently touched upon is the topic of murder. Why do you think that Mario creepypasta exists? Pretty much every Mario game involves at least one life form or another getting killed on screen. One example? The amount of enemies Mario slaughters on his quests. And for what? To free a princess that'll only get herself kidnapped the next day? Even worse, the brick blocks that Mario breaks are actually Mushroom Kingdom citizens turned into bricks. In the first game at least. That means every time a brick block is destroyed in that game, an innocent person is murdered. Imagine being transformed into an inanimate object and being unable to move, then your hero comes up and kills you, and you can't even scream out to him and tell him what he's doing. One example is in Super Mario Sunshine. In the mission Chain Chomplets Unleashed, the Chain Chomplets, which are essentially puppies in this world, have been corrupted by lava goop. The only way to return them to normal is to launch them into the water. But when you do that, they turn all white and are face down in the water in a way that would make them drown to death. And if you think that I'm looking too deep into this, then try to put those together with the fact that they don't appear in any other missions in Pianta Village. So murder can be very easily applied here, and if that's the case, then you're essentially murdering puppies. But the worst one is in some Paper Mario games, where there's an innocent creature called the Waka. where if you hit it with your hammer, you can take off some of its dead skin to eat it and restore health. It actually does die if you hit it enough times, and every time you hit it, it gets more brain trauma and seems to suffer from short-term memory loss. No thanks, I'll stick with my Ultra Shrooms. Intelligence systems? How is this in any way funny? Now, to be fair, Mario has actually done more good than bad, because if it weren't for him, the world would have been consumed by darkness, conquered by Bowser, or erased from existence along with all the dimensions out there. But this is just horrible! The Shadow Queen is easily one of the most disturbing characters in the entire franchise, and one of the most disturbing villains Nintendo's ever brought out. Even though I thought that there were 3 entries that deserved this spot more than she did when I made my Scariest Moments list, the Shadow Queen is still something that you can't underestimate. After you defeat Bowser, you find out that Grotus has escaped, and you now must head to the deepest part of the Palace of Shadows. But once you get there, you find out that Grotus has beaten you to the bottom floor. All the candles turn dark, the Shadow Queen emerges, and darkness begins to spread all over whatever kingdom this is. But then it gets worse. When she possesses Peach, some horrible tremors go off, and the Shadow Queen makes her grand entrance. After you fight against her, she shows her true form and becomes invulnerable to all of your attacks, giving you the feeling of hopelessness, until she consumes the audience right before your eyes. Even though you do eventually defeat the Shadow Queen, you can't tell me there's no way someone can be creeped out by that, unless you think it feels kind of cliched, but it still makes me shudder a bit. After you defeat Cackletta at the Woohoo University, Cackletta has been so injured that she's been majorly wounded and can't continue to live in her body. Even if she pretty much brought that upon herself, that's not right. And just when you think you're finished with your quest, Fawful absorbs Cackletta's life energy and allows her to take over Bowser's body. And now, Bowser looks utterly hideous, with those soul-piercing eyes, that creepy smile, and I really shouldn't mention the last bit. But the real horror comes from when you actually reach the final battle. After a fight with Bowletta, the game will once again make you think that Cackletta has been defeated. A time bomb sneaks up behind you and knocks you out instantly. Then, Bowletta eats you. And now you wake up inside Bowletta's stomach, and what is this horrible place? And why does it look like what everyone around me described what hell would look like? It doesn't look this bad in Bowser's Inside Story, and oh my gosh, what is that? I knew that Cackletta was ugly, but I didn't expect her life energy to look that ugly, especially in a game with happy and colorful visuals such as this. To defeat her, you have to destroy the heart. I know that's common in video games, but when I first got to this point, I hadn't experienced that many instances of having to literally smash someone's heart. Even after defeating her, they managed to make her death be very dramatic, to the point where I actually feel kind of bad for her, even after she already crossed the moral event horizon. That is something that not a lot of media can do. Bowletta is freaky both on the outside and the inside, literally and figuratively, and do you want to know the worst part? She isn't even number 1! Even after seeing the Shadow Queen and Bowletta, we still haven't seen the creepiest Mario villain. Now, I present to you the Shrooms. Even though the normal Shrooms don't look that bad, similar to Tubba Blubba, sometimes actions can make someone scary even despite of their appearances. Let's just see what they do. They attack and presumably kill innocent Mushroom Kingdom citizens, and make more of themselves by liquidifying toads and feeding them to a giant caterpillar. You know, for kids. One of their actions involves creating a giant Yoshi-like shroom that eats Yoshis, which would count as cannibalism if it weren't part of the Shroom race. And not only that, but they took over Peach's castle in the past. When you finally gain entrance to it and assemble most of the Cobalt Star, you get to see just what they've done with this place. You are greeted with a horrifying shade of purple and one of the freakiest songs in the whole franchise. If you grew up with Super Mario 64, this will probably have quite the effect on your childhood. After you put an end to Princess Shroom, you think that everything will get better, but then it is revealed that the Cobalt Star you've been reassembling throughout this whole adventure wasn't going to save the kingdom, but it was actually a prison. Inside the Cobalt Star was another Shroom Princess who was even more heinous than the younger Princess Shroom. The star begins to act crazy, creating thunder, until it eventually releases the horrible monster trapped within it. And man, is she hideous. Now you must battle to the death against this abomination as she goes all out to kill you, even going as far as to sacrifice her own troops to try to bombard you. Okay then, would have been smarter to have her troops fight alongside her, but whatever. In the end, these Shrooms are actually more sympathetic than you might think. The Shrooms have done some pretty terrible stuff, but they're doing this because their own civilization was in danger, and they needed your life energy to save theirs. You're still doing the right thing by defending your planet, but it'll make you feel bad for doing so. Nevertheless, you still continue to face them and put an end to them. And you do manage to save everyone in the kingdom after finding out that the cure to the Shroom problem was the tears of babies. Please tell me you're not serious. Super Paper Mario. The darkest game in the entire Mario library, and quite possibly one of the darkest Nintendo games without question. Why, you may ask? Count Blick is a tragic villain, doing what he's doing because he thought his girlfriend died. Sounds stupid at first, but the reason he's doing this is because now he's miserable, he sees life as cruel and meaningless, and he believes that he should take that from everyone. How does he do this? By creating a giant portal in the sky to suck up all dimensions. Seeing the portal get bigger and bigger can send shivers down anyone's spine. So what becomes of all the worlds that get sucked into the void? Eventually, you'll get to see for yourself. After failing to get through the Samurai Kingdom in time, you re-enter it and see just what happened to this place. The entire kingdom has been erased off the face of the universe. The textures, people, and even the sky are all gone, with the only things remaining being destroyed buildings without any color in them. This is the fate of all worlds if you don't stop this prophecy. Not only all worlds, but literally everything that ever existed will be destroyed. No one will have any afterlife, they'll all be gone. Literally forever. That is horrifying. Makes me question why people say that Mario games are only for little kids. I mean, yes, the Samurai Kingdom does eventually come back after you beat the game, but the thought itself is more than enough to warrant it as the #1 spot on my top 15 most disturbing Mario moments list. I am Meta572, thank you for watching, and happy Halloween everyone.